A billionaire's luxury car glides to a halt beside a homeless woman. He steps out, sits next to her, and what he says alters everything. The city never pauses. Vehicles zip through intersections, horns merging with the murmur of hurried pedestrians. The sidewalks pulse with movement. Executives rushing to meetings, tourists capturing snapshots, joggers weaving between strangers. Yet, amid the constant motion, Maya remains still. She occupies the same bench she has for months, positioned across from a bustling coffee shop. The aroma of freshly brewed espresso never quite reaches her. In front of her sits an old, faded soda cup, her makeshift collection plate. A few coins clink inside, dropped by the rare passerby who acknowledges her presence. Most don't spare her a glance. Others flick their eyes toward her briefly, only to turn away, as if recognizing her existence might burden them with responsibility. Once, Maya served her country, a Marine, disciplined, unbreakable. Now survival is her daily battle. Her weathered hands clutch the straps of a tattered military backpack, the last remnant of her former life. Everything she owns is inside: an aging blanket, a frayed sweatshirt, a few canned goods from a local shelter. She shifts slightly, trying to ease the stiffness in her legs. Nights on the concrete have worn her down in ways she never imagined. Spring may have arrived, but the dawn air is still bitter. She pulls her coat tighter, bracing against the lingering cold. The metal bench beneath her leaches warmth from her body, its unforgiving surface biting through layers of fabric. Across the street, people sip overpriced lattes, lost in carefree conversation, untouched by the struggles mere feet away. Then, a car slows. Not just any car. A sleek, black Rolls-Royce, the kind that feels more like a mirage than reality. The tinted window inches down, revealing a brief exchange between the driver and someone inside. Moments later, the door opens. A man steps out, tall, composed, impeccably dressed. His charcoal suit fits flawlessly, his crisp white shirt immaculate. A watch gleams on his wrist, likely worth more than an entire row of apartments in this part of town. Maya doesn't immediately place him, but his face is familiar. A name from headlines. A billionaire. The kind of man who bends the world to his will with wealth alone. She expects the usual. Fleeting pity. A polite nod before he moves on. But he doesn't. Instead, he approaches her. Maya stiffens. She's encountered all kinds. Some with good intentions, others with judgment wrapped in false sympathy. Sometimes it's a lecture, a sermon disguised as concern, a reminder of the choices that led her here. She braces herself, but he says nothing at first. He simply sits beside her, hands resting on his knees. Silence lingers between them. She eyes him warily, waiting for the pitch. A charity initiative, a foundation that would use her as a photo opportunity. Instead, he finally turns to her, looking not through her, but at her. "You served," he says, his tone steady, Maya's eyes narrow. "What makes you say that?" He gestures to her backpack. "Standard-issue military gear, and the way you sit, straight back, squared shoulders, trained posture." She exhales sharply. Most people overlook details like that. "Yeah," she mutters after a beat. "Marine Corps." He nods, as if he already knew. She doesn't ask how. Maybe he's just perceptive. Maybe he's been around enough veterans to recognize the signs. Either way. It's been a long time since anyone truly saw her, looked beyond the worn clothes and the makeshift shelter of a city bench. But something about this situation feels off. Men like him don't stop for people like her. They don't trade penthouse suites for cold metal seats, not when they have private jets waiting on runways. So why is he here? More importantly, what does he want? Maya shifts slightly, her fingers instinctively tightening around the straps of her backpack. She's used to fleeting glances, to people noticing her for a split second before retreating into their own lives. But this man, this billionaire, he's different. He just sits there, watching the city move as if time bends to his will. She exhales, focusing on the skyline ahead. You gonna tell me why you're here? Or are we just gonna sit in silence? The man leans back, hands clasped. I saw you, he says simply. Maya scoffs. Plenty of people see me. They don't really look. His voice is calm, deliberate. They see a woman on a bench, maybe a cautionary tale. I see someone who's been through hell and made it back. She studies him now. Really studies him. There's weight behind his eyes. Something unsaid, something heavy. He's not looking at her with pity, and that unsettles her the most. You a vet? She asks, testing him. He shakes his head. No, but my father was. Army, 2 tours. A pause. He never talked about it much, but I saw what it did to him, and what happened when he came home. Maya's shoulders relax just a little. She doesn't like to admit it, but it's easier talking to someone who understands, even if it's secondhand. People who haven't lived it don't get it. They don't know what it's like to give everything for your country and return to nothing. You never said your name. A smirk tugs at the corner of his lips, like he's amused she hasn't figured it out yet. Nathan Baines. Her eyes widen slightly. Now it clicks. He's not just rich. He's the kind of rich that makes headlines. CEO of a massive tech empire. Philanthropist. The billionaire whose every move sparks debates. People either admire him or despise him, but they all know his name. Maya chuckles under her breath. What the hell is a guy like you doing sitting on a bench with someone like me? Nathan doesn't flinch. Maybe I needed a reminder that money doesn't fix everything, Maya huffs. Tell that to my empty stomach. He nods, like he expected that response. When was the last time you had a real meal? She shrugs. Had a sandwich yesterday. Some guy handed it to me before I could even say thanks. She hesitates. Before that? Silence. Nathan presses his palms together. Come with me. Let's get you something to eat. Maya shakes her head. No offense, but I don't trust guys in $1,000 suits handing out favors. I get that, he says, but this isn't a favor. It's a conversation, one you might need more than you realize. She eyes him, weighing her options. The logical side of her says to walk away. She's been burned before, people pretending to care just to ease their own conscience. But something about him makes her pause. He doesn't feel like a man looking for a photo op. He feels real, and damn, she's hungry. Fine, she mutters, grabbing her backpack. But if you try anything shady, I've got a mean right hook. Nathan chuckles. Noted. They rise from the bench, and for the first time in years, Maya walks alongside someone who doesn't treat her like a shadow. But the question still lingers. What does he really want? Trailing a few steps behind him, her instincts remain sharp, scanning every movement. People part effortlessly as Nathan strides forward, clearing his path without a word. It's the presence, the tailored suit, the air of authority that demands attention. Meanwhile, she's spent years being overlooked, fading into the scenery like she's nothing. The stark contrast unsettles her. Nathan stops in front of a quiet restaurant. It's not flashy, but it's also not the kind of place that welcomes people in ragged clothes, carrying their whole existence on their backs. Maya hesitates, her pulse quickening. She's been turned away from places like this before, sometimes without even stepping inside. You sure about this? She mutters. Nathan glances at her. Are you? She exhales, steeling herself. The moment they cross the threshold, the rich scent of roasted meat and warm bread envelops her, a comfort she hasn't felt in years. A waiter approaches, his welcoming smile faltering the second his gaze lands on her. His eyes flick to Nathan, then back, a silent judgment hanging in the air. She knows that look, the unspoken question of whether she belongs. But before the waiter can voice it, Nathan speaks. 2 seats, booth in the back. The man straightens instantly. Of course, sir. And just like that, they're seated. A crisp white napkin rests in front of her, silverware gleaming under the soft light. Maya scans the room, half expecting security to escort her out. When nothing happens, she exhales slowly, fingers brushing the edge of the menu. Get whatever you want, Nathan says. She hesitates, eyes flicking over the list of meals. Choice. It's been a long time since she's had one. Most of her meals come from shelters, food pantries, or whatever she can scrounge. You're gonna regret that offer, she mutters, then orders a steak, mashed potatoes, and a slice of pie. Nathan smirks. Good choice. For a moment, silence stretches between them. Maya shifts in her seat, feeling the weight of something unspoken pressing down. Finally, she breaks it. You gonna tell me why you're really here? Nathan doesn't answer right away. Instead, he leans forward, elbows on the table, eyes steady. You ever think about how you ended up here? Maya tenses. You mean being homeless or everything that led up to it? Both, she exhales, leaning back. Thinking about it won't change anything. But it matters, he says. Your story matters, she scoffs. To who? Nathan's expression doesn't waver. To me. Maya studies him carefully, searching for an angle, a motive. Why? For the first time, hesitation flickers in his eyes, like he's weighing his words carefully. My father came back from war a different man, he says finally. He lost himself in a bottle, couldn't hold a job, pushed everyone away, and when he lost everything, no one helped him. Maya swallows hard. She knows that story. She's lived it. I was just a kid, Nathan continues, voice quieter now. I didn't understand then, but I do now, and I know what it's like to watch someone disappear into the cracks of a system that doesn't care. Maya doesn't speak for a long moment. Then, quietly, that why you stopped? Because I remind you of him? Nathan exhales, his jaw tightening. Maybe. His gaze meets hers. Or maybe I just got tired of walking past people like you and pretending it wasn't my problem. Maya's throat tightens. She's had people toss her food, drop coins into her cup, but no one has ever looked at her and admitted they actually saw her and felt something. The arrival of food slices through the tension. Maya picks up her fork but doesn't eat right away. Instead, she watches Nathan, studying him, searching for cracks in his polished exterior. All right, rich guy, she says finally. Let's say I believe you. What happens now? Nathan leans back, a small smirk playing at his lips. That depends on you. But what he's about to propose will change everything. Maya chews slowly, savoring the warmth of real food settling in her stomach. It's been too long since she's had a proper meal, and she wants to make it last. But his words hang in the air between them, heavy, unsettling. What do you mean it depends on me? She asks, setting her fork down. Nathan clasps his hands together on the table. I want to help you. Not just with a meal, not just for a night, for good. Maya stiffens. She's heard this before. Kind words wrapped in empty promises. People who mean well but disappear when things get difficult. She's learned not to trust charity, not to believe in saviors. She laughs. But there's no humor in it. You want to save me, is that it? Nathan doesn't flinch. No, I want to give you an opportunity. What you do with it is up to you. Maya narrows her eyes. What kind of opportunity? He leans in slightly, lowering his voice. I want you to work for me. She blinks. What? I own businesses, foundations, programs. I could give you a job, start you somewhere steady, help you get back on your feet. Maya scoffs. You don't even know me." "I know enough," he counters. "I know you're not here because you're lazy. I know you've survived things most people wouldn't. And I know you're more than what the world sees when they look at you." Her grip tightens on the fork. She wants to believe him. Wants to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone finally sees her as more than a statistic. But trust is a hard thing to rebuild when it's been shattered too many times. "Why me?" she asks. "Why not someone else?" Nathan exhales. "Because I've walked past too many people like you before, and did nothing. I don't want to do that anymore." Maya looks down at her plate. The last time she had a steady job, a real place to sleep, a future, it feels like another lifetime. "Think about it," Nathan says, sliding a business card across the table. "You don't have to decide now, but if you want a way out, this door is open." Maya stares at the card, the words blurring slightly as a wave of emotions crashes over her. Without a word, she slips it into her pocket. But what happens next is something neither of them could have predicted. Someone snaps a photo. By morning, the internet erupts. Billionaire Nathan Baines spotted. Dining with homeless woman? What's the story? Social media spirals into chaos. Some praise him, calling him a hero. Others accuse him of staging a PR stunt. The speculation is relentless. Maya only finds out when she wakes up to a crowd of reporters outside the shelter where she spent the night. "Maya, what did Nathan Baines offer you? Do you think this is just for publicity? Are you accepting his help?" The questions hit like bullets. She pulls her hood up, trying to slip away, but the cameras follow. Life was already hard. Now it feels like a spectacle. Later that day, she finds herself back on the same bench where this all started, gripping the business card like a lifeline. She could throw it away, disappear again, or she could call the number. Maya watches the world move around her. People passing, still not seeing her. Except now, they do. But is that really a good thing? She turns the card over in her fingers, feeling the weight of the choice pressing down. The past few days have been a whirlwind. One moment, she was invisible. The next, the whole world had an opinion about her. She hates it. The attention, the cameras, the speculation. She hasn't called yet. Something in her gut tells her there's more to this than what Nathan let on. And she's right. The next morning, everything changes. Maya walks into the public library, finds an empty computer, and types Elliot Baines into the search bar. She already knows the basics. Billionaire, public figure. But what she finds next stops her cold. His father, Richard Baines, U.S. Army, 2 tours in Iraq, died in a VA hospital 10 years ago. Maya grips the edge of the desk, her pulse hammering. That name, it's not just something she's read in the news, it's from her past. She clicks through old articles, scanning too fast, her mind already racing ahead. The pieces fit together in a way that makes her stomach twist. She knew Richard Baines. Not well, but well enough. He was in the same VA support group she attended after her discharge. She remembers those dimly lit rooms, filled with people carrying ghosts on their shoulders. Richard had been one of them. Quiet, polite, but haunted. The war still lived in his eyes, and she remembers the last time she saw him. He had just lost his apartment. He said he didn't want to be a burden on his son, said he'd figure something out. A month later, he was dead. Maya leans back in the chair, staring at the screen. This isn't random. Elliot Baines didn't stop because she was just another homeless person. He stopped because she reminded him of his father. Her hands shake as she logs out. The morning air outside is sharp against her skin, but she barely feels it. The weight of the truth presses down on her. She exhales, staring at the business card again. Maybe it's time to get some answers. That afternoon, she makes the call. A crisp, professional voice answers. "Mr. Baines's office?" Maya clears her throat. "Tell him it's Maya, he'll know who I am." A pause. Then, "Hold, please." A few seconds later, Elliot's voice comes through the line. "I was hoping you'd call." Maya grips the phone tighter. "I know who your father was." Silence. Then, a quiet exhale. "I figured you'd put it together." She swallows. "Why didn't you just tell me?" His voice is steady. "Because I didn't want you to feel like a charity case. I didn't stop for you because I felt guilty about my father. I stopped because I know what happens when people like him, like you, get ignored. And I don't want to be one of those people anymore." Maya closes her eyes. She doesn't know what to say to that. Nathan speaks again. "Come to my office. Let's talk properly. No cameras, no press, just you and me." She hesitates. But maybe, for once, trusting someone isn't the worst idea, because this time, it's not about charity, it's about something real. The city hums around her, horns blare, conversations blend into a dull roar, but Maya stands frozen outside a towering glass building, gripping the straps of her backpack. She could still turn around, disappear, slip back into the background where no one expects anything from her, but something keeps her planted in place. With a deep breath, she steps inside. The lobby is pristine. Polished floors, sleek furniture, the kind of place where people like her don't belong. The receptionist looks up, startled, already forming a question. Before she can speak, Elliot appears from the hallway. "Maya." His tone is neutral, but there's something in his eyes. Relief, maybe. "Come on in." Maya follows him through the glass doors into a sprawling office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Everything about it screams wealth. Modern, pristine, untouchable. It's exactly what she expected from a billionaire. She crosses her arms. "All right, Elliot. No cameras, no press, just us. So tell me, what do you really want from me?" Elliot leans against his desk, watching her carefully. "I meant what I said. I want to help you, but only if you want it," Maya huffs. "Help me how? By throwing money at me? Getting me a hotel room for a few nights?" Elliot shakes his head. "No, by giving you a job." Maya lets out a short, sharp laugh. "Doing what? You think I can just slide into some corporate gig?" "No." His voice remains calm. "I want you to work with veterans, people like you, like my father, people who never got the support they deserved." Maya blinks, caught off guard. She wasn't expecting that. "I'm funding a program," Elliot continues. "Not just a shelter. Real rehabilitation, job placement, counseling, long-term support. But I don't want to build something for veterans without veterans. I need people who understand, people who have been in the trenches, both on the battlefield and after it." "That's you." Maya stares at him, her chest tightening. "This isn't pity. This isn't a handout. This is real." "You're serious?" Her voice is quieter now. Elliot nods. "I wouldn't have stopped that day if I wasn't." Maya looks down, her thoughts racing. She's spent years being ignored, overlooked, passed by. Now someone is offering her not just dignity, but a purpose. For the first time in a long time, she considers what it would mean to say yes. 1 month later, Maya steps through the doors of a newly renovated building in Austin, Texas. The sign out front reads, "The Richard Baines Veteran Support Center." She glances at Elliot, who stands beside her, watching the final touches being put in place. "You actually named it after him?" she asks. Elliot nods. "He would have wanted this." Maya exhales, running a hand through her now trimmed hair. She looks different. Clean clothes, a steady job, a place to stay. But more than that, she feels different. She scans the staff, some social workers, some veterans like her, preparing for the first wave of people who will walk through these doors, looking for a second chance. She thinks about the bench she used to sit on, the way the world passed her by. And now, she's here helping people like her. She turns to Elliot. You know, you could have just walked past me that day. Why didn't you? Elliot gives her a small smile. Because my father told me once, the only way you fail someone is by pretending not to see them. Maya lets that sit for a moment. Then she steps forward, ready to greet the first veteran who walks through the doors. Because she sees them, just like someone finally saw her. Maya's story isn't unique. There are thousands of veterans on the streets. And now, she's part of something that might finally change that, forgotten by the very country they served. But sometimes, one moment, one act of truly seeing someone, can change everything. If this story moved you, consider helping veterans in need, support local shelters, volunteer, or simply take a moment to acknowledge those who have been left behind. And if you believe in the power of second chances, hit that subscribe button, because everyone deserves to be seen.